Hello YouTube, I'm Southern Wolverine and this is Rome 2 Total War 1 versus 1. Large scale. So here we have my general. He's in an Oathsworn unit. I think this guy is the general. It's hard to tell, the guys in the Oathsworn unit kind of all look the same. And because we have large funds, we have 5 more units of Oathsworn out to his right. In the very rear force is these 3 units of mercenary Thracian peltists. Oh, I'm playing as Tylus. Sorry, I didn't mention that. It's one of the new Barbarians and Raiders factions. They're sort of half Dacian, half Gaelic in their influence. So you're going to see a lot of these Gallic type units. So in the center here I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, maybe, I think 6 or 7 of these tribal warriors who are a pretty solid mid-range unit. They're 700 some talents, I think. And for that price, their melee attack is low, but their damage is good, and that 70 melee defense and 65 armor makes them quite tough. So these guys actually do pretty well in a melee, despite their fairly low attack for that price of sword unit. You see these Gallo-Thracian infantry actually have a better attack despite being a cheaper unit. See, they're 32 to the tribal warriors 28. But their melee defense isn't quite as high, although 56 is pretty good still, and their armor is a little bit more average. Although they're more armored than their model. Looks like these guys just look like they're wearing shirts. But they still have 55 armor, which isn't half bad for a barbarian unit, certainly. So then I've got a front line here to screen my troops. That's a whole bunch of these spear warrior units. I think 6 of them also. And they have, this is a 490 talent unit. 24 melee attack is not too bad for spears, especially when combined with that 15 bonus versus large. And they do have cavalry counter tactics, which gives them a huge boost in attack against cavalry. So they can be quite dangerous. Their armor is decent, health isn't great, morale is kind of average. But still a pretty solid anti-cavalry unit, especially counting in their cavalry counter tactics ability. So over here I have 2 more of these Gallo-Thracian infantry, so I have 3 of them in total. And I have 2 units of these Thracian warriors, one here and one on the far side. And these guys have very good attack, especially considering how cheap they are. They're cheaper than any of the other melee units I've got. And they have very good weapon damage, 51. And a 15 attack bonus versus infantry, charge bonus 33 is pretty decent. But melee defense 2 and armor 30. These guys don't hold up all that well to missile fire, and they'll do good damage on a charge, and they'll damage enemy units, but they'll also die fairly quickly. If they get in a good flank attack or something, they would be pretty effective. And let's see, out in front of my main force I have a whole giant line of these Celtic slingers, who are a nice cheap skirmish unit, and I intend to use them to wear down Macedonian pikes, because I intend to avoid fighting pikes for as long as possible. So and then back, my cavalry force is not super strong for this size, but you know, can't be ignored. 6 units of noble horse, very good health for a melee cav unit. And while their melee attack isn't going to stand up to something like Campanian cav or Aspis companion calves, it's still pretty solid at 51. And their melee defense of 44 is not bad either. They also have a frenzy charge, which is I actually prefer to some of the shot cav charge bonuses, because it gives you penalty defense instead of fatigue. So it's a temporary penalty instead of a long-term penalty. In any case, let's get this rolling, and I'll let this go until we spot the opposing army, so I can go through what he has. I did mention I'm playing against Macedon, I think, and here comes the Macedonian forces. And I thought I had a decent cavalry component, but you see, here is half of the opposing cavalry. So right away, this got my attention. It made me a little bit nervous. So on this wing, looks like 3 Aspis companions, and then 3 citizen cavalry. I'm not too worried about the citizen cavalry, but they can definitely hurt my skirmishers, and some of my lighter sword units would be vulnerable to them as well. On the other wing, this is a dangerous force here too. We got, looks like 4 Thessalian cav, and 1 Aspis companion cavalry. So at this point, I'm getting glad that I took this many spears and used them to screen my melee troops. Because if all this melee cav had just bum rushed me right up the middle, that might have hurt. So anyway, I do have a missile advantage since he's only got 3 units of these garden variety archers and 3 units of light peltists, which don't concern me too much. I mean, they could damage my melee units if I were to get stuck on these pikes. They could hit me with a lot of spears or hit me while I flank or something like that. However, I have no intention of charging the front of these spears, and I hope that I can wear these guys out with missiles first. So in any case, his first line of infantry is these 5 pikes. He's got another line of 6 pikes back here, and then he's got a large melee contingent in the back. He's got a line of royal peltis and thorax swords, and more royal peltis and thorax swords. I believe he's got 6 or 5 of each spread through 2 lines. Okay, yeah, I was trying to get more games in to try out these new factions. However, Steam decided to go walkabout today and not cooperate. So I got one in. I got another one where I got trounced, and then I was getting trounced, and the battle dropped halfway through, thanks to Steam losing its connection. Thank you very much, guys. So anyway, you guys get a video out of the deal, and this one's actually kind of interesting just because of the scale. And despite the scale, it's not a very long battle, and you'll see why that is. So I'm ready to get the skirmishing started. His cavalry's kind of moving slowly out towards the flanks here. It's kind of a lot to try and look at here, so let's get the overhead. So he's got some cavalry moved out here, and these guys are moving out here. Now he's moved away from his infantry force, so I'm going to begin the skirmishing here, trying to focus on these two units of archers on the ends, get them down. And I'm going to get all my noble horse over here to try to take these 5 units out. And hopefully I can use my spears to fight this other cavalry force. So you see here he is coming in with a strike. And I'm going to move my spears over to counter. I'm just going to pull my skirmishers back, because I want to keep them alive, because I want them to wear down the pikes and things like that. So as these guys come in and make their charge, that's only a citizen cav unit, so that's not too bad. But I'm going to start activating. You see me hit cavalry counterattacks on that unit. You see their bonus for its large go up to 45. It's an extra 30-point bonus, so that's pretty solid. So I'm okay with this fight, actually. Of course, he sees what's going on over here, and he begins pulling those cavalry over to contribute to this fight. So we've got a whole bunch of frenzy charged, or what do you call it? Yeah, frenzy charged noble horse coming in. And you got a bit of a rear attack coming here on the Thessalian cav. So I believe this is a battle that my cavalry would eventually win. This 1 unit of Aspis cav is going to be a pretty dangerous one for me. But I got a pretty decent charge on them, because I already lost 8 guys and they've only done 5 damage. However, the citizen cav and the Aspis companions from the other flank are coming over to join in. So I immediately see the danger. And what I'm trying to do is run all these spears over there to help, since the spears, with their relatively low attack, aren't going to do me much good over here anyway. And since all of his cab's nice and blobbed up, I'm going to just run these guys out here. I even peeled off some of the infantry that was on this flank over there to try to help. I want to bog these guys down in a fight with my spears. So while that's ongoing, I'm trying to continue the skirmish fight. The archers are getting pretty badly beaten up. You see, they are hitting some of my units as they're coming across, so they're getting hit in the unshielded flank. Fortunately, losing these spear warriors not that big a deal for me, and they're using up some of these light peltist ammo. So that's kind of unfortunate that unit got beat up. They could be helpful in the cav fight, but it could have been worse. It could have been one of my sword units. So meanwhile, here let me go back to slow motion. There's a lot kind of going on here. I want to cover it. So what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to take my swords, spread them out into one line, because we've got this first pike line showing up here. What I'm trying to do is peel these 3 units around, line them up this way so I can get into a flank, and I want to try to get over here and get into a flank also. He's got a lot of swords coming in this direction, so these swords should have a pretty good run against things like pikes. They might have to do kind of a wide loop to get around there. But meanwhile, the spears are getting into the cavalry fight. See, we got a bunch of guys that are going to have counter tactics thrown on them soon. I also brought over the Thracian Peltis, so they're going to start throwing javelins into these Aspis companions to try to get them with missile fire on top of everything else that's happening. So I'm feeling pretty decent about this fight. It's going to cost me pretty badly in terms of my cavalry, who are already getting exhausted by this battle. Actually, you know, maybe that frenzy charge did cost them some stamina or something, because the enemies aren't exhausted, so I don't understand why that would be otherwise. But in any case, they're actually holding out pretty well. You see, these units haven't taken too many losses. So, that one's down to almost half strength. But most of them are still at 3/4 strength or more, and their opponents aren't doing even that well. And these spears in here should do me quite a bit of a benefit as well. Although these swords are going to pose a problem for me as they're coming over in mass. So of course the Macedonian player's done what he had to do. He's used his second line of pikes. He's trying to form a flank here. And I didn't realize immediately that these light peltists were shooting into my tribal warriors. It's kind of unfortunate. These guys are a little more expensive than I would like to take casualties from something like that. But the skirmishers, my slingers, are focus firing on this unit of pikemen, so they're going to go down. They're about to break, and I'm going to start doing that to other units as well. And now we got a big sword engagement starting over here, as a bunch of thorax swords come crashing down this way, and I'm counterattacking with my Oathsworn brigade. So the Oathsworn should be able to handle these thorax swords pretty readily. There are, however, these Royal Peltists. These two units of Royal Peltists are going to try to join this melee fight. And these other units of Royal Peltists are over here just butchering my spear warriors, who fortunately have more or less done their job, as the Macedonian cavalry has been pretty well destroyed. A number of units have been destroyed. You see them fleeing off there. And others have been seriously depleted. And they've all been tied up, so that lets my melee infantry fight against his pikes and melee infantry, which is exactly what I want. So here, this sword unit of Gallo-Thracian infantry got into these pikes and did a pretty good amount of damage to them, but then this counterattack from the thorax swords was more than they could handle. So as these pikes are continuing to form this sort of fishhook shape, I'm continuing to work tribal warriors around to the rear. And I'm trying to avoid getting them caught on pikes, but they keep kind of... They catch the pikes and then they stick there, and I kind of was losing track with all these units to micromanage. I did get a nice flank with these tribal warriors, so they're going to do quite a bit of damage to these pikes. And the slingers are continuing to do their damage. So individual pike units are starting to peel out for whatever reason. They must have had attack orders on, figuring I was coming in after him or something. So I'm just going to end up missile firing that unit. And he did a good job getting these light peltists out of my way, because these tribal warriors would have butchered them. And he caught them on the pikes, and these guys are pretty much going to be done. But now there's swords coming around behind, which means that this area is going to be in pretty serious jeopardy. I'm definitely won this fight against the thorax swords. My Oathsworn simply trashed them. And the Thracian peltists are continuing to now shoot their javelins into the backs of these royal peltists. So I peeled my cavalry out of the fight, since he's only got a couple left in there, and I didn't really want my guys fighting these royal peltists. So they're going to start to come around behind, just as his cav was trying to do. He got one of his Aspis companions out of that fight, as well as one of his Thessalian cav, and this Aspis companion came back from routing. So we got a lot of charges and rear charges and counter charges, and then we have a quit. It's unfortunate. This battle was still very much in the balance. And I don't know if he lost connection or anything like that, because he still had a good chance to win this battle, so I'm not sure what happened. It might have been his steam died on him just a little bit before mine. But in any case, this was enough of a test of Tylus that I thought it was worth showing, and how they can fight against some of the more traditional powerhouse factions like Macedon. Now, on this large scale, it's a little hard to see the units, but it's kind of a mixed bag for the tribal warriors. Not all of them that were even engaged yet, because some of them were just sort of standing out to, force the pikes to face them, essentially, so that I could flank them. Some of them did okay, some of them got beat up. I'm not sure how well their low attack and high defense balance out. they might make a better holding unit than an actual offensive unit. And these Gallo-Thracians, unfortunately, were either caught by pikes as they tried to flank, or hit by javelins, and I think one of them fought a royal peltast on the other flank. So you can imagine how well that went. That was probably this big fat 0. But the skirmishers actually did pretty well. These guys beat up that pike phalanx pretty good. 4 units got over 100 kills. Not bad for a unit that only cost 280 talents. And the Thracian peltasts also did pretty good damage, especially considering that almost all of their kills were against very expensive Aspis companions and royal peltasts. Oh, I'm sorry, I guess there were only 4 units of royal peltasts. Nope, sorry, there's the other one. Sorry, the generals are royal peltasts as well. And the Oathsworn did what we expect Oathsworn to do, which is to trounce inferior infantry. So there's a couple more of them here. So the Oathsworn were all doing pretty good. Had the battle continued, these guys would have faced off against the Royal Peltasts. They had a nice rear charge on them, and that would have been potentially a decisive moment. But at the moment the battle ended, I was definitely ahead, but the thing was far from decided. You see, I bled his army quite a bit more, and his cavalry losses were pretty significant. So, in any case, if you liked the video, please do like the video, comment, subscribe, and such. I'm Southern Wolverine, and I would like to wish all of you a good day.